No, not true. That was no. Wait.
This is awesome. Did we do that?
Uh-oh.
Wait, what? So a channel with 18 million subscribers made a full documentary 1 hour long and got 1.4 million views in 9 days, and this is the thumbnail they went with. Does that look like you, Matt?
I see the resemblance. It's definitely not my jawline, and I'm a little more jacked in the AI. I mean, I am pretty cock diesel, the real deal, raw American steel. However, I'm not quite as yoked as I am in that thumbnail.
I'm Kristen.
And I'm Matt.
And we did a wild boat renovation / journey, and a huge channel on YouTube found out. We're gonna watch the video for the first time, and I think the story might be a little bit different.
Two amateurs, a $5,000 abandoned boat, and one goal: turn it into a high-end luxury yacht. This couple gambled everything on a doomed vessel. They walked straight into the most brutal challenge of their lives.
This is gonna be nerve-wracking. Holy backing plate broke.
No, I'll pause it. No, because that was a brand new engine. We don't want to be too dramatic here. What I did was I forgot to put the oil plug back in when I filled it up with oil, because it gets shipped not with oil in it. So that was my fault. I just overlooked that. And also, quick correction, we weren't really desperate to escape our regular lives. I don't think we've ever really lived regular lives. She was a crazy bartender lady and I was a cage fighter, so nothing was really regular about it. There was plenty of adventure, but we wanted an even bigger adventure.
I like the drama. I think this is really awesome so far.
Bro, I'm pulled in. If I didn't know me, I'd think I was a lot cooler than I actually am.
You are cool.
They made me look cool.
But he has one final secret hiding in his toolbox. If they actually survive this brutal year together, he's planning to drop to one knee and ask her to marry him. So, where did it all begin? Price tag of just $5,000. But that price isn't a bargain. It's a warning. Holes go straight through the hull and deck. The wood is rotted. But Matt and Kristen aren't looking for a ready-to-sail yacht. This Florida couple is looking for the ultimate fixer-upper.
We were not looking for a fixer-upper. We just could not afford anything else.
Yeah, when we started the journey, money was tight.
The plan was not to be fixer-upper DIYers. That just happened.
Matt is a former MMA fighter and pool builder who learns by taking hits.
My man just said I learned by taking the hits.
He's saying you're not a good fighter.
I must be quite, to quote Gannicus, I must be quite the scholar by the time they're done beating me to death. That's basically why we started cruising, because I had to retire from fighting. Once I got 30, I wanted to keep fighting, and I was really getting beat down quite a bit. Once I went over that 30 hill, I never used steroids, so I couldn't keep up with the young bucks, and I was getting knocked out all the time. So Kristen said, hey, let's do something where you're slightly less dangerous. Turns out sailing is more dangerous than fighting.
Kristen is a veteran bartender used to managing chaos.
Time to hit sail, as I would say. I'm nervous.
In this project, she's the logistical brain, calculating materials and keeping Matt's wild ideas in check.
Beauty and brains. Beauty and brains.
The logistical.
At the same time, they keep working their regular jobs, saving every dollar to fund their dream of a life at sea.
Fun story, we only saved up $6,000 and we thought that was a lot of money.
Yeah, we went broke. You can see, like our very first videos we started filming in Key West, where I went down and I actually tried to be a bartender. She told me, she said, you can be a bartender, I'll start the YouTube channel. And I was like, but bartending's so hard. How will I learn all the recipes? And she said, the recipes are 9 times out of 10 in the order. She said, Jack and Coke, rum and Coke. She said, you know, rum punch, Mai Tais, and rum runners, that's all the same thing. Just pour a bunch of grenadine and rum into a cup and nobody's
I'm a better bartender than what he's acting.
Yeah, my rum runner, my rum punch, and my Mai Tai were all the exact same thing.
And I was mainly a server, not a bartender. I did bartend.
She was secretly a manager too, because she would tell everyone what to do.
To put their patched-up vessel to the test. Named the Dead Dolphin, the boat embarks on a daring voyage.
Wait. Our boat is named the Dead Dolphin. There is a long story to that. It's not as morose as it sounds right off the rip. It's actually a really nice story, but we don't have time to go into it now. It's a long story. We have made videos about it, but the Dead Dolphin lives.
From Fort Lauderdale all the way to Puerto Rico. But this wild journey quickly makes one thing perfectly clear. That $5,000 price tag was just the down payment. The ocean exposes every shortcut they took.
No, not true. That wasn't my shortcut. That was the people prior to us. Our rudder did fall off. If you don't know about sailing, the rudder's the thing that steers the boat. That did fall off, but we didn't do that. The prior owners did that. So that was their repair. I repaired it in Puerto Rico, and I welded it on, and it has not come off since.
The ultimate test comes when they face the Mona Passage, one of the most dangerous and unforgiving stretches of the Caribbean.
Whoa, they did a good job.
It is 40
made this
hours
look
of
scary.
structural hell.
It was scary. This is very dramatic, and I love it. This is awesome.
Against all odds, running on nothing but fumes, they finally reach Puerto Rico. They survived a 4,000-mile journey.
A 4,000-mile journey. The Mona Passage isn't a 4,000-mile journey. By the time we got to Puerto Rico, we had sailed about 4,000 miles. So between going to different islands, going around in circles, backing up, going forward, we had put about 4,000 miles on. But the Mona Passage is only like 50 miles or something like that, I think. So slight course correction there.
With the main engine not responding, Matt is forced into a desperate maneuver, using their tiny dinghy to propel 20,000 pounds of dead weight.
Okay, they cut the clips there. Quantum Tech, I gotta give you props. This has been an amazing video so far, but you showed me putting along, pushing the boat, and then showed me a wide open throttle. I was going about 20 miles an hour in that second pick of the wake. So if I could push the boat 20 miles per hour with the dinghy, I think we'd be doing a pretty good advertisement for Mercury there.
Yeah, but for the untrained eye, they wouldn't have noticed.
The new plan is an emergency stop and a full assessment of the boat.
I just wanted to toot my own horn here though, because as you can see, I'm backing up. And for the first year of our journey, the engine that we had was broken and it would only go in reverse. So we never motored very much. We always used the sails so we could actually point forward. But this particular day, we were taking our boat out for the very first time. It's the first time we ever pulled up to a dock, and I drove the boat backwards for like a mile and a half and pulled it perfectly into this slip. And I think it was because the pressure was off, because I knew we were gonna fix the boat and paint it. So I was like, oh, if I hit the dock, whatever, I'll just fix it. But after this perfect maneuvering, I hit every dock that I ever tried to pull into going forward in life. So killed it this day, never killed it again.
The entire boat's weight will be concentrated on two narrow straps. Matt and Kristen hold their breath. The Dead Dolphin might not hold the operation.
This was very nerve-wracking.
We're supposed to be holding our breath.
The hull looks like a nightmare. Matt's confidence begins to crack. The damage on the outside is undeniable. They are lucky they didn't sink at sea.
That hole that he just pulled out, I want to let everyone know what happened there.
Luck had nothing to do with it.
We had a hole, what was it, a through hole? That was never fixed, and Matt, before we left on this boat, he did not tell me about this. He took pool putty, because he used to build pools, and he covered that hole with pool putty, and we just left. And I had no idea about it, because if I knew about that, I would have been freaking out about that all the time. And then when we finally pulled the boat out for the first time, he just pulled that off. This
was something that I rigged up, and you know what? It did work just fine. So it's one of those things where if you tell someone preemptively, they'll go, that seems like a bad idea. But if you tell them after the fact, they say, that was definitely a bad idea.
It was a bad idea.
I can't believe you did that. But you know what? You got to risk it. We didn't have any money when we first left. You know, we didn't have much money. So, you know, they used to just glue these wooden boats together and cross the Atlantic with it. You don't got to get too fancy. Can't be too afraid.
Main engine is barely hanging on. A new one alone will cost $15,000.
The mixer elbow has completely broken off of the exhaust manifold. So I'm in a little bit bigger trouble here than I thought.
The boat used to be so creaky.
They have to make the biggest decision yet. Book flights back to Florida and leave the dead dolphin behind, or risk everything they have on a full rebuilding.
Should we just throw our old boat to the trash?
We never thought for a second we better book flights and fly back home.
Well, we just didn't have book flight.
No, we didn't.
There were times, I think one time Kristen flew back from the Dominican Republic, but I couldn't go. She left me in the DR with like $40 cash and said, all right, see you in 2 weeks, homie.
Now he can begin sanding. Matt borrows the heavy-duty sander and proper protective gear from local pier workers, equipment that would have stretched their budget even further.
Luckily, I was able to borrow it from South Chicha.
As the work intensifies, the boat turns into a hazardous construction zone. They refuse to have Bear living there.
How many cat clips did they have to look through for that?
I don't know.
Yard, his philosophy is simple. There is nothing he can take off that they can't find a way to put back on.
Is that your philosophy?
News to me, but calm down.
Matt faces a challenge most sailors dread: cutting into the deck. As he opens it up, the rot is clear. Years of trapped water have weakened the structure. If left unfixed, the floor could collapse under a hard blow.
You know, now that I'm removed from these projects, this has been a while ago that we did these. Now that I'm watching myself do them, especially after the amount of building I've done over the past couple of years, I can see why people are cussing me out so bad and being like, y'all are gonna die with these repairs. Flash forward, all the repairs worked, but people were mad at me for doing some of this. And you know what, it does look a little hodgepodge.
Well, we did the best we could. We did the cheapest repairs that we possibly could. And they worked.
They did work.
In a marine environment, a smooth painted deck becomes as slippery as ice when wet.
We fought about this skid, what is it called again?
Non-skid.
Non-skid, because I wanted to put it in certain places and not, and it was a pain in the butt because we did it the cheap way where you paint and then you dust your own sand on it. It was a nightmare.
As they haven't repaired the engine yet, they tow the boat with the dinghy. But as they approach the harbor, something's wrong. The steering wheel is not responding.
Well, they gave us a pass on that one. The steering wheel is not responding because we weren't really holding the steering wheel and we didn't really have a great plan.
We did terrible at that. And I guess, was that my fault? I don't remember. I think it was.
It was my fault. It's always the captain's fault. Everything falls on the shoulders of the captain. But yeah, the steering wheels do not respond to verbal commands.
They are forced to haul the boat back out of the water immediately.
Did we do that?
They're mixing parts of the story all together.
Okay, so what
happened? Tell me the
happened?
length of my hair. Well, we painted the boat and then we left for like the better part of like a year. We sailed all around. Remember, we went sailing. We went on a little trip to the USVI and the Spanish Virgin Islands. We went around sailing. We had our boat painted, which was cool, but we still didn't have an engine at this point. So we went around, sailed around for a while. And then we had to work out ordering a new engine, which they have to make and ship from England and get to America or get to the US, and the US has to ship it to Puerto Rico. So there was some logistics that the logistical brain behind the whole operation was leaving to me. But yeah, we sailed around and then we went back. And then we decided we were going to do the new engine. So we said, let's tear the entire boat apart and completely start over. But this coming back out.
The interior.
Yeah, but pulling back out of the water was because the straps, when they put it in, smudged the bottom paint really bad and messed it all up. So we had to take it out and repaint it.
Yeah, that was frustrating.
The 300-pound engine hasn't left this room in 4 decades. Getting it out will not be an easy task.
Okay, I'm coming out.
This was so nerve-wracking. It still makes me nervous watching it.
The engine is too heavy, and the rope gives way.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, from that height, it would have went straight to the bottom of the ocean through the boat.
As Kristen peels back the panels, The truth is clear. The wood is completely rotted. It has to be cut out entirely and rebuilt from scratch.
One thing is that we knew the wood was rotting in there, and Matt just put on some thin
A veneer.
veneer over it when we first left. So I don't know, we were really ballsy when we left.
I mean, it's sailing, so, you know, we'll check the weather and don't go too fast. And I was always a conservative with my sail plans. So I knew about all these shortcomings. So that's probably why I was always a little more on the conservative side for sailing and for weather windows and stuff like that. I kept you safe. Kristen's mom said keep my daughter safe, and I took that very seriously. And then, you know, I never thought I was going to sink. You can always plug a hole.
Throughout this renovation, different choices will spark a debate. The Dead Dolphin is the couple's home, and every decision feels personal.
Sparking a debate is definitely the understatement of the century on that.
For the new walls, they install custom wood shiplap, but it's hard to follow the boat's natural curves with the straight planks.
The shiplap was a big ordeal for us because it was really hard to do. I thought it was a good idea at the time, and then once it was on, I hated it, and I made Matt remove it all. And that's one thing in our relationship that he never will forget. It was bad.
It became a common theme is why I don't forget.
No,
I've done some change orders in our
not that bad. That was bad.
Trying to bend the new panel, it snaps at the corner.
Sure does. Sure did, didn't it? I knew you were gonna say
That
that.
laminate was a nightmare, and the crazy part is, Matt, we only had an electric scooter, and we were living on that island that you can see, and Matt had to get on the ferry with his electric scooter, go down to the hardware store, and take the rolls of fragile laminate on the scooter, and it was crazy, and it was miles away.
Yeah, it was about a 3-mile one-way trip. I would put like 3/4 inch plywood sheets on that scooter somehow. I strapped them down and I would rip it down the road. That scooter went about 35 miles an hour though, so it was a cool
You almost died 100 times on
Oh
that
yeah,
scooter.
I had some rough trips.
Anytime we needed supplies, he'd have to get on his scooter, or we did borrow Salchicha's truck sometimes.
Yeah, every now and again Cheech would throw the truck down, but yeah, I'm not super religious, but before I would take off on that scooter, sometimes I did.
From above, they watch helplessly as the harbor disappears into gray mist and driving rain. Matt fears the boat may not withstand the fury and hurries back down.
Well, you better be careful because I'm not advising you to go out in this weather. It'd be useless.
And that may not sound that extreme, 70-mile-an-hour winds for a hurricane, because every other sailor that's ever been through a hurricane, they lie. They say like, "Ooh, I had a reading of 140 miles an hour." They all lie. These guys, you know, we're the only honest sailors, I think, on the net, on the web.
I don't know about that, but
There's people that are like, "Oh, it was blowing 130," and then they're sitting there talking right next to their canvas or their bimini tops that didn't make it. Go ahead and drive down the road at 100 miles an hour and hang a bimini out the side of your window and see how long it stays attached. It doesn't. If your boat sees 100 mile an hour wind, everything is stripped off the deck. 70 mile per hour winds, 80 mile per hour winds, trust me, that's plenty enough to get you puckering. So yeah, we survived plenty of hurricanes, and you know, we barely made it. We made it, but barely.
What Kristen doesn't know yet is that a big surprise awaits.
We're engaged. We just got engaged at the cave. I cried a little bit. I just gotta tell the world. I'm so happy. I just gotta tell the world.
I'm just happy that such a beautiful, perfect woman would be that happy to marry some old cuss like me. I love this woman more than anything on earth, and I couldn't go another day without being engaged with her. I love you.
So one of the biggest inaccuracies about this particular story, which is really cool, been really fun to watch, but this didn't happen over the course of a year. Total work on the boat took about 9 months total. That was between the paint and the refit. So the whole thing though took about 3.5 years of timeline. So we did a lot of sailing, traveling in between that time, and then we only worked for about 9 months out of that 3 years. So there's a lot of jumping around.
Yeah, we did the exterior paint job, all that at the very beginning when we barely had any money. And then we did the sailing around. We did no engine sailing because you showed that we didn't have an engine. And then finally, when we had saved up some money, we came back to do the interior.
Yeah, late 2020 is when we did the painting, and then 2022 is when we did the refit. So we did some sailing in between.
And I think it cost more than $25,000.
Yes, it was closer to $60,000. I don't remember.
But that accounts for Airbnb stay and everything.
Yeah, well, that was total cost of what it cost us, but it was at least 45. It was close to 50 with just the parts. The engine alone was 15,000, and then all the extra additional stuff. It cost us quite a bit. The wood alone was expensive. The paint was super expensive. In Puerto Rico, that paint alone was wasn't it like $500 a gallon or something crazy like that? Puerto Rico pays some crazy taxes. So yeah, it was expensive. More expensive, and the timeline was a little confused.
Project that tested their home, their relationship, and their resilience in ways they never imagined ends with a forever love.
Forever, for now.
Wait, what? All right, that was epic documentary. I probably could tear up and cry about it. I think it was awesome. It's so cool to see the whole thing put together, and the amount of time from another creator to go through all of those clips. I didn't send them any clips. They had to watch through all of our videos to get all of that is beyond amazing. I can't even put into words.
No, yeah, the team did a great job with that, and it is kind of emotional to see it all in one shot. When you're living it piece by piece, it didn't really look like you did too much, but over that 7 years of us sailing, it was quite a bit. And obviously I think about all the memories in between those times. This was just more or less focused on the refit and our first journey, but there's so much that happened, on the other videos, and a lot of personal growth. This was a crazy thing that we got through, watching us start off as just a skinny dude, at 145 pounds when we first started, going and getting all fat and married and all that stuff. It was pretty cool to watch. But since then, so much has happened also. They did a great job. They did a great job telling the story, and it is emotional to watch it all. But since then, we've done so much. We've did a whole off-grid property in Puerto Rico, which was insane, and now we had our baby, so we're back in the States, working on building a house, because it would be cool to sail around the world. And what we learned is $5,000 was great. It was an awesome adventure, but not the boat I want to go around the world on. If I can, build some wealth with this home renovation, maybe I can get a $500,000 catamaran one day and go sail the 7 seas with my.
We're not with boating yet, deep down in our hearts, but we are currently doing a really awesome home renovation that Matt is doing. If you can see the background, it's a mess right now. So check that out. If you're new, subscribe to our channel. And if you have any questions, leave them down below, because we're gonna do a really good, honest Q&A.
Honest Q&A.
So leave your best questions down below, and we'll see you guys next week.
Well, once again, too, thank you to Quantum Tech for putting the video
Yes.
together. You guys killed it. You deserve your 1,000,000 views in a week. You guys were awesome. It was super fun to see that and watch that and experience that.
They deserve multiple millions for that
They
much
deserve-
work.
They deserve multiple millies. You were the logistical genius behind it all, and that boat came out beautiful. And now that we're on to the final boss of working together with your spouse, I think that this is going to come out just as good. And now, this came at the right time, because now after watching that, I'm fired up to keep working.
We'll see you guys next week. Bye.